What's new, crew? Welcome back to my channel. For anyone who's new, my name is Cassandra and I'm going to be sharing with you guys today what you can put in your freezers, how to freeze it, all of those things. I get questions all the time on my once a month grocery hauls, how I can freeze things. So today I'm going to be showing you guys some freezer tours. I have this freezer behind me, of course, and then 2 chest freezers in my basement. But before I show you guys those, I just wanted to go over things you can freeze, what I'm going to be showing you a little bit, and some tips, tricks. And of course that will be sprinkled throughout the whole video, so if you want to get the most out of the video, watch the whole thing because I'm going to be sprinkling tidbits throughout. I have my notes in front of me. Let's go. So I have my little note piece of paper here because I don't want to miss anything, but I'm going to be breaking these into categories to make them easy to follow. So the categories I have that we're going to be talking about today, just so you guys know, and then if you guys are looking for something specifically, you know that I'll be covering it in the video, or maybe I won't be. But we're going to be talking about bread items, dairy items, meat items, how to freeze leftovers or prepped food, and fruits and vegetables, and candy. Yes, you can freeze candy. People are blown away by that. I was too at first, but it totally makes sense. So bread. You can freeze all sorts of bread. Loaves of bread, sliced bread. Let's see what else I have on my list here because I don't want to forget anything, right? Tortillas, bagels, English muffins. You can also freeze cupcakes if you walk down the clearance aisle at Walmart. Usually they have over by the bakery section, they'll have the clearance carts of things that either are coming up on their expiration date, they need to go away, or maybe it was a seasonal item. Like around the holidays, they'll have lots of leftover like pumpkin pies or Easter themed candies or cupcakes, Christmas cupcakes, all of those things. You can buy those, throw them right in your freezer, and then they're good whenever if you just want to pull them out. I don't know how well they last for an entire year, so like Easter's coming up. I don't know if you could buy like an Easter cupcakes, freeze them, and then pull them out next Easter. I've never left anything in my freezer that long, but possible, maybe. But I like to grab those things when they're on sale because usually they're somewhere between like 25 and 75% off depending on how close to the expiration date they're coming. I'll just grab those, throw them in my freezer, and we can pull them out as needed. You can also do donuts in that section. Right around Valentine's Day, they had heart-shaped donuts with sprinkles and stuff on them. I thought my kids loved them. I grabbed 2 boxes and I just took them out of the box, put them in a freezer Ziploc bag, threw them in my freezer, and pulled them out a couple weeks later. My kids had donuts for breakfast and they loved it. So you can definitely do that. I talked about pies. Heading into our dairy section, you can freeze butter, all sorts of cheeses, sliced, cubed, blocked, string cheese, shredded cheese. The only thing is some cheese freezes better than others, and I mean they all freeze well. It's what happens when they unthaw. Sliced cheese tends to break apart. I like sliced cheese on burgers and sandwiches. Obviously, when you pull them out of the package, sometimes they can break in half, they get a little crumbly. Still works, does the same thing, especially if you're putting it on a burger. Doesn't really care if it comes out in a couple pieces because you're melting it most likely anyways. Blocked cheese, same thing, can get a little crumbly. It depends really how long you have them in your freezer too, because sometimes I'll have blocks of cheese in my freezer for just about a week or 2, and I'll pull them out and slice them and they're fine. Sometimes if it's longer than that, they kind of crumble apart. So that is up to you. It still kind of all works the same. Shredded cheese is the best cheese to freeze, as well as string cheese. Freeze that all the time for my kids. I get huge packages of them at the beginning of the month, like multiple packages. Put one in my fridge, put 2 or 3 of them in my freezer, and my kids devour the string cheese throughout the month. So that's why I keep mine from going bad. Cream cheese, another thing you can freeze. The texture does change a little bit. It's not like something you want to pull out of the freezer and smear on a bagel or something. The texture changes, but it's really great for baked items. I use mine in frosting. I make cream cheese frosting with my kids probably a couple times a month for various baking items that we do, cookies, cupcakes, whatever. I pretty much always do a cream cheese frosting. Pull those out of the freezer, let them defrost, throw them right in my KitchenAid. Right, where is it? Throw it in my KitchenAid over there, and got you some cream cheese frosting. It works well for that. Crock-pot meals are amazing. Stews, soups, all that stuff works well. I wouldn't just smear it on a bagel because I don't know how well it gets a little gritty is the best way to describe it. Whipped cream, you can freeze whipped cream. You have leftover stuff, especially with Easter coming up in the holidays or whatever. You have leftover tubs of whipped cream, you can throw them in right in the tub. You don't even have to put them in a bag, just throw them in the tub. If you want, you can slap the date on it, throw it in the freezer, good to go. Sour cream you can also freeze. Same thing, just throw it right in the freezer in its container. It'll freeze wonderfully. Once again, texture changes, so I wouldn't like just take a dollop of it and put it on top of a taco, but if you're putting it in soups, stews, recipes, great for like creaming up whatever, works great for that. Baking it works well for still different recipes, but yeah, I wouldn't just put a dollop on a taco or whatever and have it be the best. But what you could do is just take a dollop of it and throw it in your taco meat and kind of warm it up and get like a creamy taco meat situation. It'll give you kind of the same effect. So that's how I use leftover sour cream. Milk and yogurt. Milk is actually made in the carton to freeze. Let me pull it out. Milk has a divot here in the side of the carton. This is for expansion for when it freezes. Just have someone drink a glass of milk, pour yourself a bowl of cereal so you have a little bit of headspace in it for when it freezes, because obviously liquids expand when they freeze, and then you just throw the whole jug in the freezer like this, good to go. I do that all the time. When my husband was military for the first handful years of our marriage, if we were going on leave and I had milk in my fridge, which often we did, I would do the same thing, just throw it right in my freezer and it was good to go. I would pull it out when we got home and we would have milk ready for us because our kids were little, and we flew through the milk. Obviously, when you have babies, you go through a lot of milk. So I would do that and it would save me tons of time and effort, and I wouldn't have to dump out a perfectly good gallon of milk because by the time we got home from our 3-week vacation, the milk would be bad. So just throw that bad boy in the freezer, you're good to go. It also thaws out really well. It's not like the texture changes or the taste changes. I've never had a complaint for my kids drinking defrosted or de-thawed. The last one is yogurt. I freeze yogurt all the time. It's one of the things that I freeze the most. Whether you're freezing a container like this, you would just throw this right in the freezer and it doesn't matter if it's already open. So you guys can see I'm almost at the bottom of my yogurt here, but say that this was coming up on the date, it was gonna go bad in a couple days and I didn't think I was gonna go through this, I would throw it right in the freezer. It doesn't matter if the seal is broken, throw it in the freezer, pull it out when you need it, it's good to go. These Go-Gurts my kids eat all the time, just like the string cheese. We go through so many of these throughout the month. I get 2 or 3 big boxes at the beginning of the month for my kids and I throw them in the freezer, pull them out when we're ready. And my kids also actually really like to eat these frozen, especially in the summer. I'll just cut the top off and wrap them in a paper towel and my kids have like a frozen yogurt. And it's way better for them than a popsicle. Freeze these bad boys, save yourself money of throwing away wasted yogurt. Now let's head into the category of leftovers and prepped foods. Way back in 2020, the beginning of 2020, I had my 3rd baby. My husband was working a crazy amount of hours plus going to school for his apprenticeship, and I was at home a lot with 3 kids, 4 and under, and it was a lot. So I would meal prep at the beginning of every week just to save myself the sanity that I needed as a mom and to make sure that all of my family would eat consistently, because that's what you need to do when you have kids. You need to feed them. So at the beginning of every week, a lot of the times I would meal prep a whole bunch of meals, and sometimes I'd throw them in the freezer. Especially around the holidays, you guys have seen me make freezer meals from leftovers, especially turkey pot pies, turkey or ham shepherd's pies, and I'll make those and throw them in the freezer. And you have a whole, I like to refer to them as convenience meals, right? You don't want to cook, you came home from a long day, so you're gonna throw in a pizza, or you're gonna pick up some fast food on the way home. Well, instead, I go downstairs, I go into my freezer and pull out a convenience meal that I already made from leftovers, or sometimes if I know I'm coming up on a busy season of life, when I'm cooking dinner, I will just cook 2. One for my family to eat, one for the freezer to pull out later. It's a great time saver if you don't have a whole Saturday or a whole weekend where you can sit down and just batch cook a bunch of meals. Even if for 1 week you just doubled your recipes and made 2, you already are gonna have 7 extra meals to pull out later out of your freezer for when you need them. Saves you so much time and so much money. That's why I use up my leftovers. Or another way, right here I have frozen pumpkin pie from Thanksgiving or Christmas. Right around the holidays last year, we had a ton of leftover pumpkin pie. This is the good stuff. This is homemade pumpkin pie from pumpkins out of the garden that my mother-in-law made us, and I didn't want to throw them away. But we just weren't eating it fast enough. So I cut them into little squares, and I put 3 or 4 in each of these little sandwich baggies. And I've just been pulling these out at random, and sometimes after supper, everyone gets a square of pumpkin pie, and it's really fun. So I'll just throw them in a Ziploc bag, toss them in the freezer, pull them out when I want them. I also get a lot of questions on how you defrost things. It's this simple. Pull it out of the freezer, put it on the counter, and walk away. That's how I defrost things. However, sometimes if I need it like right now, I put that bad boy in the sink, turn on the hot water to break it apart from the bag a little bit, because you know, sometimes it freezes to the side of the bag. I get it to where it's defrosted just enough where I can actually pull it out of the bag, put it into either a crock pot or a soup pot or whatever, and cook that thing down just like you plopped it out of the can from the grocery store, and you're good to go. You can also just cut up vegetables. If you know that you use a lot of minced garlic or a lot of cut up onions, peppers, all of those things, just go ahead, prep them all at once, throw them in a bag, throw them in the freezer in those little Ziploc bags, or even in those like snack sized bags for vegetables. All you have to do is pull them out of the freezer, throw them into your pan, and you've got pre-cut vegetables, and you saved yourself just a little bit of time, and you don't have to wash a cutting board or a knife because you always did it. Unless dishes to wash are always a blessing, right? I don't personally do that, but I do know people who do that, so more power to you. I can, instead of doing all that stuff, I like to save a little bit of room in my freezer, so I tend to can. I'll grill my vegetables over the summer, can them, and mine are already kind of cooked. I just kind of dump them in whatever I'm cooking, and I'm good to go. So here's one of my canning jars I just pulled out of my fridge. These are just tomatoes and tomato juice. Whole tomatoes and tomato juice, not that it cares, but I can save myself a little bit of freezer room. We'll talk more about freezing fruits and vegetables later. You can also freeze marinated meats if you just wanted to marinate some meat in your favorite teriyaki sauce or sweet and sour sauce, herbs and honey or whatever you like to do. Throw all the meat and that marinade in a Ziploc bag, throw it in the freezer, you're good to go. Throw that bad boy in the grill or whatever. So you can freeze pretty much anything. You can freeze when it comes to leftovers or even prepping food. You don't have to prep or you don't have to freeze a whole meal. You can freeze just those like seasoning blends that you want to do. I am the queen of making too much soup or too much spaghetti sauce, and I'll just throw it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer. It's good to go. You can lay them flat, however, I almost never do that. I just plop it in there, and then I have like this big huge thing of spaghetti sauce. But it is what it is. But yeah, I freeze leftover soups, leftover pretty much anything. I will freeze pretty much everything. You can freeze it in a big gallon sized bag, or you can freeze them in more portion sized. If you know that like maybe you work from home and it's just you're feeding for lunch, you can freeze them in Ziploc bag sized containers. Or there are some really cool products on Amazon. It's kind of like an ice cube tray, but they're fatter, or they have bigger compartments, and you can freeze things of leftovers in, so then you're just plopping out like a brick sized thing of leftovers. If I can find them on Amazon, I'll link them down below. None of the links in my description box are ever affiliate, or none of the links in my description box are ever affiliate. I don't want you guys to ever feel like I'm just talking about something or recommending something, because I'm gonna make money off you clicking the link. So you never have to worry about that in any of my videos, but whatever I can find that I think you guys will be interested in, I will link down below. You can also just use regular Tupperware containers, leftover containers. It's one of those things where if you have like, you use all your yogurt, you can keep this container and freeze spaghetti sauce in here or soup or whatever, and it'll hold pretty well in here. I would just probably write on the top of your lid what you're freezing in it, so you don't forget, because even if you don't think you're gonna forget, you'll forget, trust me. So these work really well as well. You can also freeze things in mason jars. So let's go on to the next category, which is fruits and vegetables. Every year my mother-in-law makes a ton of jam. I'm pretty sure this is strawberry jam, but we make the jam, and instead of canning it, we freeze it, or at least that's what my mother-in-law did when she made this. So I've got lots of different jams in my freezer currently. Just leave enough headspace for it. The expansion, when it freezes, you're good to go. But jams, we also have like smushed berries in jars like this for the tops of strawberry shortcakes, cheesecakes, things like that. So I would just defrost this and dump it over the top of our cheesecake or our strawberry shortcake, on top of ice cream, brownies, kind of whatever you want. And these will be good to go, and they last forever like this. So it's not like I'm gonna have to run to the store and get fresh strawberries. I can just pull some out of my freezer and I'm ready for it. So let's talk more about berries. You can freeze whole berries, which I do all the time. We go strawberry picking and berry picking every year, mostly for the jam, but sometimes everyone has enough jam. You don't need any more jam. I'll just freeze them whole in a Ziploc bag, pull them out when I want them, and like I said, We'll put that on top of ice cream, strawberries, smoothies is a big one. Sometimes we make homemade popsicles and I'll put whole berries in them. That works out really well. The kids love it like that. If you're doing like a lemonade and you want to throw some of those berries in there, that works really well for that too, that we use a lot. You can freeze grapes, throw them in a Ziploc, throw them in the freezer. My kids love to eat frozen grapes in the summertime, or even my chickens on a particularly hot day. I'll hand them or throw them over some frozen grapes. They love it. Freeze pretty much all vegetables. So if you ever have a question on what you can freeze, just walk through your freezer aisle and see what is kind of in there. Anything that they're freezing, you can freeze. So I freeze peppers, onions, garlic, carrots, peas, green beans, pretty much anything. I freeze it all. Also, you can freeze cherry tomatoes. I was a little overzealous last summer and I had 20 tomato plants, but I think 10 or 12 of them were cherry tomato plants. Those are a pain in the butt to can because you have to peel the skin off. And have you ever tried to peel the skin off of a tomato this big? It's a pain. It is a pain, and by the time you peel it and pit it, you have like nothing left. So my father-in-law actually taught me that you can throw all those cherry tomatoes in a Ziploc and they work amazing to throw in your crock pot or into a big pot of soup. They will actually peel themselves and the skins will float to the top, and you can just scrape the skins off the top of your stew, your soup, or whatever, and then you have tomatoes in your soup. It's wonderful. It's an amazing hack that I recently learned, and I did that last year. I froze a bunch of cherry tomatoes, and I've been doing that throughout the winter and headed into the spring here. Works amazing. Once again, I wouldn't just pull out a frozen tomato and try to like throw it in a pasta salad or on top of regular salad. Texture is not going to be the same, but it works amazing in soups, stews, spaghetti sauces, things like that. The last category is candy. With Easter coming up, you can freeze peeps. Pull out what you want, especially when it comes to the day after the holiday, whether that be Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever it is. They have those specialty candies. Walk down that 50% off clearance aisle, the 75% off clearance aisle, grab those candies, come home, throw them in your freezer, and enjoy them throughout the rest of the year. I love those Reese's Christmas trees that they come out with around Christmas time, or those Reese's Easter eggs. Love them. Go ahead, throw them in the freezer. You can even grab those whole chocolate bunnies. Grab them when they go on sale. Instead of paying $1 for them, pay 25 cents, 50 cents, whatever it is. Throw those bad boys in the freezer. And maybe it's a rainy day, your kids can't go outside, they're driving you nuts, none of the movies are fun anymore, none of the toys are fun anymore. Grab some of those Easter bunnies that you froze. Grab some of those chocolate Easter bunnies that you froze in April, and even though it's July or August, pull those out, hand them to your kids, and enjoy the silence and the satisfaction that they think it's so cool. Mom just pulled a chocolate Easter bunny out of the freezer. You can defrost those if you want. It's not like they're gonna melt, but my kids love to eat that stuff frozen. I think I'm actually gonna end this video here. It's a little bit longer than I had anticipated it being. I'll still show you guys a little snippet of my freezers, but a more in-depth freezer tour will be in a separate video. I do plan on doing a freezer organization, so maybe that's where I'll do an organization and a freezer tour, or maybe it'll be 2 separate videos. I don't know, but those videos are coming, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see those. I hope this video answered all your questions. If you have more questions, let me know down below. What do you guys freeze? Do you freeze things that I didn't talk about? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram. It's @CassieandCrew. I show behind the scenes on my Insta stories pretty much every day, and you guys always get a heads up on what videos are gonna be posted through my Instagram stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next one. Bye.
I don't wanna stay here, no. Ain't gonna keep it low now. If you wanna go, let's go. Let's wrap it up.